Okay, so we got an athlete here who's about to accelerate a medicine ball by transferring energy into a propulsive force. Anytime I'm looking at coaching an athlete's mechanics, coaching how to be more explosive, one of the things that I'm looking at first and foremost is how does the athlete deal with collisions, or what is their foot placement? Um, so in this particular situation, what we see is as an athlete is landing or coming down and colliding with the earth, they have their foot externally rotated. And what ends up happening when that happens is that the lateral edge of your foot can get loaded. All right. So the lateral edge of your foot is going to get loaded, which is going to add a braking force that's going to allow your hip, knee, and ankle to all be in alignment. So that's what we see right here. And that external rotation also allows for more dorsiflexion at the ankle, and it allows the glutes to load eccentrically, and the glutes are usually our main source of propulsion. So as the hip extends out from that position of alignment, the energy that is stored in the hip begins to accelerate the body forward. All right. Now that energy travels down the leg and into the ground, and because the ground's not going to move, that energy it rebounds right back into us, which is where you start seeing him moving forward. Um, so essentially what you're seeing here is that his center of mass is shifting forward, and the load is now shifting from that, outer edge of his foot across to the first metatarsal head under the big toe. And the moment that his foot leaves the ground here is the moment of impulse. So that is essentially a moment of weightlessness. You can actually see that if you look up at his hair, right? It's hanging down here. And as soon as his foot leaves the ground, the hair looks like it's weightless, like it's hanging up there, right? And it only returns back down once his foot hits the ground there. So that accelerates your body forward. That is creating momentum. The other thing that we got to look at here is that external rotation during the impulse creates an energy transfer that crosses the midline. Um, as it goes up the body. So let's just take a look at everything's in alignment here. Look at the spinal angle. It's pretty much in alignment with the leg angle. They're both pretty much vertical. But as the foot pushes off, you can see that hip movement all moving laterally. So that's energy traveling up that right leg and traveling across the midline of the athlete's body. And that creates a fairly strong rotation, and increases the energy potential that the athlete is holding. All right. Notice that the rotation doesn't have to be too large because of all the rotations and torque that has been created from the ground up. All right. So now all the athlete has to do to accelerate the ball, because all that energy is being transferred across the midline, up through its chain, out through the shoulder, just needs to extend the arm. Just allow that energy to flow through his arm, out through the ball, and that'll accelerate the ball. So we just saw the athlete doing the exercise correctly. Now we're going to see when they do it incorrectly. And we're really going to get to see how important foot placement is to developing power. We're going to see how important foot placement is to transferring energy into a propulsive force. So again, the question that we're dealing with is how does the athlete deal with the collision? So what is their foot placement, and does that put them in an optimal position to create movement? So our foot placement here, as we're looking at this athlete collide with the earth or land, is with their foot placement linear. All right. So in the first video, we saw that their foot was turned out. Here we're seeing it linear. So what does that end up doing? Now we're not seeing that hip, knee, and ankle alignment that we were seeing before. But why is that? With the foot linear, it's not in an optimal position for redirecting energy. Remember, I said that with the foot turned out, the lateral edge of the foot is able to do its job and as adequate braking force that allows the hip to slow down just enough that it can get in alignment. But because we're not getting that here, the body, the entire body is still moving laterally, it's still moving to his right. Energy flow is still moving to his right here. So what we end up having is energy leakage. So you can see that the foot stops, but the hip crosses past the ankle. So it started on the left side of the ankle, but crosses past where the ankle line towards the right side. And as that happens, to maintain a center of mass or to maintain some sort of symmetry as far as the the direction that you want your force to go, which is forward now, the knee dives forward. So the ankle is essentially in between, is positioned in between the knee and the hip to get bounce. But this is not an optimal position for movement to create torque and power. So because this knee dives in here, what ends up happening is that this hip is really late to extend. And so you can't start propelling yourself forward optimally. So what the body does to try to balance that out is actually, let's look up at the shoulders now and look how much rotation happens here. An insane amount of rotation the athlete has to do just to try to load up now, right? To try to load up so that it has more potential energy. All right. So because that much rotation happens, the shoulder actually holds less tension in it, and that means that there's again less energy potential. So as we can see here, it lands, knee comes in, hip dives out, lots of rotation here, and then the athlete comes back to being able to extend and push through. But this motion takes so much time. You can actually see this looks different too. Look at the back, like the trail leg here, how high that kicks up. That's also energy leakage again. So all the energy is not being driven forward. Some of it is still releasing laterally here. So after that impulse comes energy leakage here. So just again, as we're looking, that foot not being in an optimal position on the ground has led to several energy leaks that we can going up the chain that we can see at the knee, the hip, the torso rotating too much, the shoulder not being able to carry a lot of tension, and all that is wrong. If you watch this in full speed, you'll notice the timing is off too. He moves way slower than the original clip.